Okay. So I'm going to share my screen. Like in the group chat. Today we are going to learn about this one right here. Share my screen first. Okay. So I'm currently turning off my camera just so that the internet connection stays stable during the class. Okay. So I hope all of you can see my screen right now. Okay, hold on. It's right here. Okay. So today for our first lesson, we are going to learn about finding the subject and verbs. This is actually the fundamental part of learning grammar because when we are trying to construct a sentence, then we always need a subject or verb. If one of them is absent, then it will be called as a phrase. It won't be a complete sentence. This is why we need to learn, to identify the subject and verb of the sentence right here. So here are the examples. Um, Besides that, we also need to learn if the subject and verb agree, and that is why it's called subject-verb agreement. Okay, should I? So for this one, this is the first example. The list of items is or are on the desk. So right here, zoom this out. So I think most of you have this book already. So probably most of you can read it beforehand. Okay, so just another information that the first underline right here, for example, this is list. This is the subject of our sentence right here, and the one that has two underlines here, that will be the verb. We also need to know that the subject can be plural or singular. Singular means that's only one, and then for plural, that's more than one. So for example, here, the list of items. The list is the subject, and is the verb of this sentence right here. So the list is a singular noun, while items is plural, so we shouldn't mess these up. For the list of items are, it is incorrect, it is because the one that we identify as the subject is list. And that is why it is important for us to be able to identify which is the subject of the sentence, because sometimes it can be confusing. So there's a definition right here. You can read it right here. A verb is a word that shows action or state of being. So all of you are probably familiar with the word am is are, which is a state of being, and it is also a part of verb. Verb also shows an action. For example, right here, we have he ran around the block. Ran is a verb that shows an action. This is also a verb. And you are my friend. Are right here is also part of the verb, which is a state of being. So here are some rules. I'm going to here. So if a verb follows to, meaning that there's the word to in front of our verb, it is called an infinitive phrase and is not the main verb. You'll find the main verb either before or after the infinitive phrase. For example, I like to walk. And from this sentence right here, I like to walk, the word like is the main verb. And for to walk, it is the infinitive phrase. So it is not the main verb. It is actually a verb that is actually more like a complementary one that completes the whole sentence. So it's like an additional information. And from the sentence right here, to walk actually explains what is the person talking, what is the liking of that person. This is why I like to walk. So we know that what is the person's liking is to walk. So that's the usage of it. And if a verb is followed by to right here, like to right here, to get, then it should be in the verb one form. It is the original form. We should say to get. It's not, for example, get has three forms: get, got, and gotten. It should not be to got or to gotten. It should be to get, which is the first form. So the efforts to get her elected succeeded. So well, usually the first part, for example, the efforts, these or something like that, it's usually the verb, not the verb. I mean, sorry about that. I mean the subject. It is not the verb, even though efforts can be somewhat like a verb, but it's not. But no, please. I mean that the subject doesn't has to be a person or something that is tangible. It can be something like efforts that is not a verb. Yeah, I mean it that way. The efforts to get her elected succeeded. So to get right here, it's the complementary. And elected succeeded. Succeeded is from the word success. And this is the main verb, not to get. So always keep in mind that when searching for the main verb, the word that has followed with to, it is not the main verb, it's just a phrase, and that we call an infinitive phrase. So subject is a noun or pronoun that forms the verb. For example, right here, effort is the noun, and then woman is also a noun. Unless it is a she, then it will be pronoun. So the woman hurried, woman is the subject right here. So then we have rule number 2. There are 5 basic rules right here. And I think I've shared them through WhatsApp group as well, through the WhatsApp group. And then rule number 2, we have the subject will come before a phrase beginning with off. So a bouquet of yellow roses will lend color and fragrance to the room. So this will become, I mean, the subject will come before a phrase beginning with off. So for example, a bouquet of yellow roses. So the subject will always be before the word off. For example, this bouquet right here won't be yellow roses because it is after the word off. It should be before off. That's why this bouquet. And there are no other verbs. That's why will lend would be the verb right here in the sentence. Okay, so if any of you have any questions, you can ask me right away. I will try my best to explain it. Okay. And I also try not to talk too fast right now. Okay, so rule number 3 is to find the subject and verb. We have to always find the verb first and ask who or what performed the verb. So here's some examples. It's a really long example right here. So, okay, there are actually a few examples, not a long one. So the jet engine passed inspection. Pass is the verb, who or what passed the engine, so the engine is the subject. So rule number 3 suggests that we should find the verb first because verb is actually way easier to identify rather than the subject because subject can be messed up with the verb. So should be identifying the verb first. For examples right here, you can see that pass would be the verb. So the engine would be the subject. So if you include the word jet, as the subject, sending will not strike you. Technically, jet is an adjective here and is part of what is known as a complete subject. So there would usually be something that's called an adjective right here. You can see from the sentence right here. Jet technically acts like an additional information from the word engine. So that's why it's called jet engine. So if we say that it's jet engine as the subject, that will not technically be wrong, but engine is the primary subject in the sentence. So that's why if we add gen, adjectives will be known as the complete subject. Okay, next sentence. From the ceiling hung the chandelier. So the verb hung right here is the verb in the sentence. Now, if you think ceiling is the subject, so we have to sing again here. Ask who or what was hung. The answer is chandelier, not ceiling. Therefore, chandelier is the subject. So the subject doesn't always have to be in front of the very sentence, like the one that we previously, for example, like this bouquet and other examples. It could be at the back of the sentence. And that is why it is safer to identify the verb first rather than the subject. So we need to know, after identifying the verb, just going to repeat this again. We need to identify what is the doer. For example, who or what was hung from based on this sentence right here. It is not the ceiling because the ceiling was not the one that is hung, but the chandelier from the ceiling. So the ceiling is basically just an additional information. It is technically not the main subject. The main subject is the chandelier. So that's how we identify the verb and subject. So this is rule number 4. Any request or command such as stop or walk quickly has the understood subject you, because if we ask who is to stop or walk quickly, the answer must be. So by this rule, rule number 4 means that sometimes such as command or request from a sentence, for example, stop or walk quickly right here. Please bring me some coffee right here. So usually the speakers won't add the word you in front to emphasize the subject because, well, usually the one who listens, like the one who received the command will usually understood that they are the one who is being directed to, that is you. And then we understand that the command is directed to us. So the word you right here, the one in parentheses, means that it is not necessarily, but just to emphasize that you're the one, or we are the one that supposed to receive the command. And then bring right here is the verb. It's pretty obvious for rule number 4. We probably encountered this a lot. Okay, so rule number 5. Rule number 5, sentences often have more than one subject, more than one verb, or pairs of subject and verbs. Okay, so this is sort of like more complex than the previous rules. So sometimes, like it says right here, there are probably more than one subject, or it could be a compound subject or something like that. So here's a few examples. I like cake and he likes ice cream. 2 pairs of subject and verbs. So I like and he likes. So there are basically 2 subjects and 1 verb. The verb is only one, which is the word like. This only 1 verb, and then the subjects, there are 2 of them, which is I and he. 2 subjects in the sentence. And there we have another type of sentence, mm, which is one subject and two verbs. She lifts weights and jogs daily. So there is one subject, which is she, and the two verbs are lifts and jogs. So there are two verbs, identify, and then one subject. So usually if there are no other subject, for example, of the lift weights and jogs, then there would be only one subject unless it is specified. For the example is I like cake and he likes ice cream, then that would be two subjects. So I don't think there is this lower part of subject and verb agreement on the PDF that I've shared, but for those who have the book already, then I think most of you have written this, has read, I mean, not written, I mean, has read this already, read this already, and we take notes. Okay, so subject and verb agreement. So there, the basic rule states that singular object takes a singular verb, while a plural subject takes a plural verb. So like I said before, there are two types of subject and verb there. The singular and plural. So the first one is we need to identify whether the subject is singular or plural or not. And the next trick is recognizing a singular or plural verb. So they're not really hard to identify, especially for the subject. It is pretty easy to identify. Okay, so here's a hint. Verbs do not form their plurals by adding an S, as nouns do. In order to determine which verb is singular and which one is plural, think of which verb you would use with he or she and which verb you would use with they. So here are the examples. So talks and talk. Which one is a singular form? So for example, I want to say he, then we say he talks. Therefore, talks is a singular. We can say they talk. Therefore, talk is plural. So just to be like, I mean, this is the usual one. The the ones with the S is usually for the singular form for he, she, or it. And then the one without the S, for example, talk, is usually the one with plural subject for plural subjects. It is, well, it's not always, but that is the main idea of it. So this is rule number one. Two singular subjects connected by or nor require a singular verb. So for example, my aunt or my uncle is arriving by train today. So the two subjects are my aunt and my uncle, aunt and uncle. So those are the two subjects. We managed to identify the subjects. Okay, so aunt or uncle may be singular if they're on one, but since we connect them with the word or, an aunt and uncle, now they have become. They've not like they become something like a plural form. Still require a singular one because it's or. It doesn't technically mean they're plural just because it's or. Unless they say it is an, then it can be plural. So they still remain singular because it's or. It's either my aunt or my uncle. It's not going to be them both. So that's why we said is arriving. So once again, is, it is used for singular subjects, so singular verbs. It's not, yeah, it's part of singular verb is arriving by train today. So this is a kind of tenses that we're going to learn. Okay. So there, rule number two. So I'm sorry if I don't speak, I don't really speak too, I mean, clear, but I hope all of you can hear what I'm currently talking about. Okay, so now we have rule number two. So singular subject connected by either or neither nor. Require a singular verb as in rule one. So we can go back higher up again so we can see rule number one. So neither Yuan nor Carmen is available. So we can see or is nor is basically the same thing in the singular, I mean the subject verb agreement. The one that's kind of differentiate them, or is more like the positive, and nor is from like the word no and or being fused by combined, and then well, this become nor. So neither is usually accompanied by nor, and either is usually accompanied by or. It's just that. But for subject verb agreement, it technically means the same. And once again, these are two singular subjects, and that is why we're using is, which is the singular verb. Juan or Carmen is available. And then this one is another example, but using either or. Either Kiana or Casey is helping today with stage decorations. So once again, two singular subjects is connected by either or nor, and it requires a singular verb because we cannot see them as plural just because they have two subjects. It still counts as singular because, well, once again, the word or means that it is either one, not both. Now, I think we have an example for and. I think at the bottom, I'm not sure. I kind of forgot if this is the one right here. You can see. So there's also and right here. And I'm going to explain later. We are going to go for rule number 3 first. When I is one of the two subjects connected by either or neither nor, put it second, follow it with a singular verb and. So this is if the word I here, neither she nor I am going to the festival. So this is kind of an exception for the subject I, which is followed by I am instead of is or are. It will be I am going to the festival. So am going should be the verb right here, and she or I, she and I right here. I mean the two subjects. It's still like singular, but since there's I, it's an exception. It is not she, neither she nor I is this, but I am. So rule number 4, we have when a singular subject is connected by or on to a plural subject, put the plural subject last and use a plural verb. Okay, so from the previous 3 examples, there are only 2 subjects, but both of them are singular. But for rule number 4, we have a singular subject with this right here in the example, which is surfing bowl. It's a singular subject. While plates, it's a plural subject. And put the plural subject last and use a plural verb. So when we are trying to say, I'm trying to connect 2 subjects, and one of them is plural, we should put the plural at the back of the sentence right here. For example, this plate is the plural one. So we put this on the back. And then we are going to use a plural verb, which is right here, go. We don't say the plate goes, but we say the plates go because, well, it's a plural verb. And the plural verb of go would be still go, and the single one would be goes. So rule number 5, we have when a singular and plural subject are connected by either or neither nor, put the plural subject last and use a plural verb. So it's basically the same for this one, with the exception that we added neither or either at the very front of the sentence. It's basically the same idea with rule number 4. Rule number 5 is basically the same. Neither Jenny nor the others are available. So Jenny is a singular subject and others is a plural subject. And we use are right here, which is a plural verb, not others is available, but others are available because once again, we should put the plural subject at the back and then use a plural verb to complete the sentence. And then for the next rule, so I'm sorry if I'm going way too fast, but I think this material is actually not quite much. It's only a few pages, and most of them basically have the same idea. So for example, now we have rule number 6. As a general rule, use a plural verb with 2 or more subjects when they are connected by "and." So this is what I'm saying before, that we use the connecting word that is "and." So a car and a bike are my means of transportation. So plural verb with 2 more subjects. So a car and a bike, both of them are actually singular subject if they're alone, just a car or a bike. But now the words are connected by "and." I mean, the subjects are connected by "and" right here. So now they have become one from the word the car and the bike. So since they have become one right here, it is now a plural subject. And that is why we use "are" right here, which is a plural verb. So I hope this explains. For "or" we use, so basically summary of this, it is that "or" if both of them is singular, we are using the singular verb. But if one of them is a plural verb, I mean a plural subject, then we use a plural verb at the back of them. But if you use "and" right here, it is become a plural subject, and then we have to use a plural verb. So basically that's the main idea. So I think there are a few more rules. This, I think I mean I hope that we can finish the subject verb agreement part, and then we can move on to the next rule for our next meeting. So rule 7 we have, sometimes the subject is separated from the verb by words such as "along with," as well as "besides," or "not." So we should ignore these expressions when determining whether to use a singular or plural verb. So here's the example. The politician, along with the newsman, is expected shortly. Right here, we can see that there are two subject. Like one of them acts like a subject, but no, it's actually okay. Fine. We actually find two nouns right here, which is the politician, the singular one, and then newsman, which is the plural one. But based on rule number 7, we can say that the subject is separated from the verb by words such as "along with," as well as "besides," or "not." We should ignore these expressions by determining whether the subject is the main subject and whether to use a singular or plural verb. So the politician right here is the subject right here. Why? Because we should ignore the other words that follow after the word "along with." For example, this newsman right here. So we should use a singular verb, not plural, because the politician one is the real subject. And the newsman right here, it's just basically to confuse us. So we should avoid that and just ignore any kind right here after the "along with," or as well as "besides," or "not," based on the rule number 7. So since it is singular, we use "is expected." And then for the second one, second example, we have excitement as well as nervousness is the cause of her shaking. So basically, it's kind of intangible excitement and nervousness, but we should just, well, exclude the word nervousness right here because we should ignore words after as well as or along with. So the main subject here is excitement. And since we already identify the subject, then we should use is right here because it's a singular. Verb right here is the cause of shake. And for rule number 8, we have the pronouns each, everyone, everyone. So these are different, everyone and everyone. So everyone means that everyone should involve or everyone. So okay, everyone means probably in Indonesian probably easier to explain. Everyone means semuanya, and then everyone it means that setiap orang gitu. So every right here is means like tiap or setiap, and then for everyone right here we have semuanya. So that's the difference, the spacing right there. And everybody, anyone, anybody, someone, somebody, and somebody are singular and requires singular verb. Do not be misled by the follows of. So each of the girls sings well. So the girls probably right here, it's a seem seems like it is plural. So we should not use, but we should not use sing, which is a plural verb, but we should use a singular one because we say each right here, which means setiap, just like I said right before. So when we talk about each, we're talking only about one. So this should be a singular subject. And singular subject should be followed by a singular verb as well. So this is why sings well. And it's just the same goes as for the second example, which is everyone the cakes is gone. So cakes sounds like a plural subject, but it's actually since we're talking about each or everyone or something like that, it should be singular since you're talking about each one, meaning there's only one. So one here is sort of like a clue. And that is why we are using the singular verb right here, which is. And for the first example, we use things. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about previously. So everyone is one word when it's mean everybody, or everyone with a space. There's two words when the meaning is each one. So this is the definition. So rule number 9, we have with words that indicate portions, sorry. Percent, fraction, part, majority, sum, all, not, remainder, and so forth. Look at the noun in your phrase, object of the preposition, to determine whether to use a singular or plural verb. If the object of the preposition is singular, use a singular verb. And if it's plural, then use a plural verb. So, for example, here are the examples right here. So, 50% of the pie has disappeared, and 50% of the pies have disappeared. So, technically, the word 50% is the same, but we're not looking about this 50%. We need to see what the off phrase after the word off, which is pie. Here, and pie is the object of the preposition of. And by here is singular. That's why we have to use a singular verb as well, which is has. While for the second example, we have pies, which is the object of the preposition, and pies here, it is not singular, it is plural. So this is why we need to use a plural verb, which is have, disappeared. So another example right here. One third of the city is unemployed. And then for the second one, we have one third of the people are unemployed. So for fractions like this, we need to hyphenate it. This is called a hyphen right there. And city right here is a singular object right here. This is why we use is. And people is the plural subject. I mean, not plural object. And people is the plural form of person. Person is the singular and people is the plural. So that is why we use this plural verb right here, which is are unemployed. So I think most of you are catching up already, and most of you probably understand this already. But I'm just going to keep going for this example. Of the pie is gone, of the pies are gone. Like the previous sentence, that we know that this pie right here is singular, meaning that it is supposed to be a singular verb as well. So just noted that for fractions, for example, like percentage, all, some, none, like the previous rule that just written the bottom line right there, we should see the object right here. So if the object is singular, then we have to use a singular verb. And if the object is plural, then we have to use a plural verb. For example, like this spice example, it goes the same for the example sentence below. Some of the pie is missing and some of the pies are missing. It's technically the same thing. Like the previous example, plural, plural and singular object will determine the verb, whether it's going to be singular or plural. So this is the unique. Right here, none of the garbage was picked up. None of the sentences were punctuated correctly. So was is a singular verb, while were is the plural verb. So take note of that. So of all her books, none have sold as well as the first one. So we are talking about have right here, have sold, which is a plural verb. And why we are talking about plural verb? Because we need to know which is the object right here, which is books. Books is a plural object right here. So that's why we need to use a plural verb as well. So I hope that explains it. And here's a note. So this is an interesting note about the word none. So SAT testing service, none is actually a singular word, while on Merriam-Webster's, it can be both. So basically, in the real life context, it seems like singular, then we use a singular verb, and if it's in plural, then we are using a plural verb. It's basically based on the context. There's no right or wrong in the none. It can be it can be both singular and plural. Okay, so we're going to the next rule number 10. When either and neither are subjects, they always take singular verbs. So like I'm saying right here, so either usually follows by or and neither is follows by nor. And usually with this type of word, it is usually like an option between two things. And it's usually just either one. So that's why it is singular. So this is how the way I think about it. So that's why when these become, our subjects, neither of them is available. Either of us is capable of doing the job. So it will also always follow, it will take a singular verb. So just take note of that either neither as a subject, it will be always singular. They will always take the singular verbs. So for rule number 10, we have the words here and there have generally been labeled as adverbs, even though they indicate place. In sentences beginning with here or there, the subject follows the verb. There are 4 hurdles to jump. There's a high hurdle to jump. So here and there, they're just adverbs to indicate the place. So the subject will always follow this one right here. So there are, there is. So we need to actually see the subject right here. So hurdles. So hurdles is a plural subject, and that's why we are using are. which is plural verb. And for although it is a singular subject, and that is why we are using a singular verb as well. And for rule number 12, we have used a singular verb with sums of money or periods of time. So the examples, there are two examples right here. $10 is the high price to pay, and 5 years is the maximum sentences for the defense. So technically, why we use a singular verb with sums of money periods of time when it seems like dollars, for example, it has an S, and years, 5 years, it seems like it is a plural subject, but why we are using a singular verb? I think this is just my way of thinking, but let's just say this is a whole one sentence, like $10 and 5 years right here. It's just one subject, one singular subject. So that is why we just think of it that way and use the singular verb. Is present is the maximum sentence to the offense. And now we have rule number 13. I think we are on to the last two rules. Sometimes the pronoun who, that, or which is the subject of a verb in the middle of the sentence. The pronouns who, that, and which become singular or plural according to the noun directly in front of them. So if the noun is singular, use a singular verb before, then use plural verb. This is the basic rule. So here's the example. Someone is the scientist who writes or write the report. The word in front of who is scientist, which is singular. So that's why we have to use the singular one, which is fights, right here. So technically, we need to identify the subject before the word who right here. When we're trying to identify whether to use a singular or plural verb. So Salma is the scientist. So the subject here would be scientist. And scientist is a singular, and that is why we use who writes, which is singular. And now we have, therefore we use the singular verb writes. Okay. So he's one of the men who does or do the work. So should we use does or do? Does is a singular, and then do would be the plural. The word in front of who is men. So we just need to see the subject before the word who. Scientist right here, and then this is men. We're not talking about the he, we're talking about the men who is which is right in front of the word who. And men is plural. So that's why we use a plural verb, which is do right here. So now we are on to the last rule, which is rule number 14. So rule number 14 is a collective noun such as team and staff, maybe either singular or plural depending on the use of sentences. So for example, we have the staff is in the meeting. Staff is acting as a unit here. So there are usually a few words such as team, staff, or family. It can be a singular or plural. I mean, it is a team that consists probably one or more people, but they actually have a plural form, which is teams, staffs, or families. And they usually count as singular, collective. This kind of noun, we call them collective nouns. And usually they use a singular verb because we count them as singular. So the staff is in the meeting. Staff is acting as a unit here. It doesn't mean that the staff there is only one, but staff is acting as a unit. So it is acting like a singular subject. That's why it's using a singular verb right there, which is. And the staff are in disagreement about the findings. Staff are acting as a separate individuals in this example. So to avoid confusion, people usually add staff members. So it is obvious that the word members right here is the plural subject. Staff members are in disagreement. So R right here is the plural verb, the staff members. So I think that's all for the subject verb agreement. And I think for the next one, we have pronouns. And pronouns can be in three cases: subject, object, or possessive. So this would be the materials next week. Okay. I stopped sharing my screen, and I think all of you, probably the ones who participate in Mandarin class, have a class in 12 minutes from now. So I'm going to stop the recording first.